When the ancient demon Zakdos was finally sealed away, it supposedly ended the war against evil. But now, Zakdos is free again, and to make matters worse, the Sword of Hope has been stolen. Oh, bugger. Never mind. Acclaimed and famed Prince Theo is ready to embark on his second adventure to retrieve the sword. If you remember how the first Sword of Hope game worked, it's basically the same here. Each screen is stationary, no moving characters, platforming, or anything of that nature. In a Shadowgate kind of vibe, the whole game's navigation is menu-based, including the battle sequences. You have the 4 cardinal directions as arrows on the lower left side of the screen. These will show up if you can move in a particular direction, and you just have to click them to do so. You have a few menu options as well. Look will not only describe various objects, but also allow you to interact with NPCs and open up options. For instance, you have to look at some seaweed to spot the pair of pliers behind it before you can obtain them, things like that. Open is pretty self-explanatory. Hit will attempt to punch something. This can reveal hidden passages, hidden monsters, open chests, or find things like wheat or barley in a tree. I'm not sure who put the wheat in a tree or how eating unprocessed cereals like that can cure you. I'd imagine it would just make you ill. We're fighting make-believe creatures in a make-believe land, and it's the characters' digestive systems that bothers me. It's weird how your suspension of disbelief works, isn't it? You can save at any time by pressing start, which I recommend before every boss at the very least. It doesn't usually matter otherwise, as if you're methodical, then you won't die a whole lot. Most aspects from the first game that were a little irksome or just downright weird have been fixed. You'll never get multiple battles one after another on the same screen as before. Win a fight and you're free to move further, so the progression of the game does feel a bit better, but still it does at times feel quite slow-paced. This is a large game, or at least it's made large by the drawn-out feel of everything. It seems there's something close to a 50-50 chance that moving to any single screen will trigger a random encounter. That's not such a bad thing really, as it's essential you do some grinding at various points, but if you're just looking to progress, then it can grow tiresome, as battles aren't exactly quick. The difficulty of the enemies you'll have to fight are staggered quite alarmingly. You can be wiping out whole squadrons of monsters with barely a scratch in one part, only to be decimated in a couple of turns in the very next section. This should inform you that you're either not leveled up enough, or that you're going the wrong way and need to invest in some new equipment before you can get through a part. For instance, I traversed through the whole desert into this prairie land before doing the desert quest, and yeah, you don't want to do that. Those king frogs are evil. It depends how much of a challenge you want, I suppose, but really it's a good idea to be able to stomp most anything in an area before going too deeply into it, as the bosses can be way tougher than the surrounding fights. If you die, you'll be teleported to the castle right back at Riccar where it all began, and will have to fight your way back to where you were. Not fun when you're near the end of the game. Another improvement, although it was more a charming aspect of the first game rather than a complaint, is the translation. It's much more Englishified now, as the text wasn't crammed into the same size box, but multiple screens have been used. This allows much more of an involving story to be told, and you do feel a stronger connection with the characters this time around, especially Mute, who witnesses his entire family being wiped out early on. You'll meet a girl called Nina in the desert who is frantic in trying to rescue her petrified father, but thoroughly unequipped for the task. You do really feel for her and actually care about trying to help. This is certainly an improvement over the first Sword of Hope game, which did suffer from occasionally cryptic, nonsensical storytelling. The static images look very good even though they take up less than half the screen. I imagine this was necessary due to the fact that each tile has seemingly unique scenery accompanying it. This is pleasing, as you can probably imagine that navigating around what is essentially a step-by-step maze can get baffling, especially when you're constantly breaking away to fight a minute-long battle. There are lots of different enemies and they look rather sinister, the bosses in particular. There's little battle animation save the attacking monster moving delicately towards and away from you, so you do have to use your imagination a little bit. The magic attacks are about the best animations in the game, although they look largely the same. It's not about that though. If you've ever played a tabletop RPG or one of those text adventures, then this is basically that sort of feeling, with some nice pictures accompanying your journey. It really works too. Bear in mind here that what we call the Sword of Hope 2 wasn't actually released in the West until 1996. The Japanese version of the game, Selection 2 Ankoku no Fuin, was the one that came out in 1992. Whatever you want to call it, The Sword of Hope 2 is a hard game to blast through quickly. In fact, I'm not sure you can do it, but if you don't mind putting the time into grinding, you'll have fun, I think. Be warned though, it's not a cheap game, especially to get one in English, but you can buy it worldwide, even in Europe where the game was never originally released, in the Nintendo eShop, for a mere handful of coins.